It was a typical school day and a typical morning when a resident ran in. Help! I need help! All the office staff eyes were turned to the desperate man who pointed out that a school child was trapped in a drain. Mr. Morris and Mr. Prime quickly followed the gentleman across the street where his testimony proved to be true. Indeed, a young female student from a neighboring school was caught in a 7 foot deep waterway. Mr. Prime's colleague was lowered, and carefully they brought both to the surface on the road. Quickly but cautiously, they took the shivering child into the office. "What's your name?" inquired Miss George, another teacher who had shown interest in the child's well being. "Aglula Varala," came a high pitched response. They all jumped back. Her words were incomprehensible, but her screeching cry for help wasn't. "And where do you live?" "Aglula Fralala." They were all confused, not sure what they were dealing with. This was beyond their graduate training. Miss George had ushered the deranged child into the nearby sick room and closed the door behind. Within 5 minutes, they were out. Miss looked troubled and shaken. With glazed, troubled eyes expressed that the child was obviously physically abused and her undergarments were removed. Mr. Prime withdrew. He had had enough. He had concluded that that child was drugged, spiked, and I quote, consumed like a box of fast food chicken, then, when done, thrown into the drain like trash. That was the start of a bad day. It's challenging to trust after abuse, whether physical, emotional, but especially sexual abuse. You can never be certain of someone's intentions. You may ask yourself, when people seem friendly or compassionate, are they looking out for themselves? How do you determine whether or not they're looking out for themselves and feel secure in their presence? You may even go a little further to barricade yourself off from other individuals out of fear of any intrusion. You might constantly be on alert, either literally or figuratively, looking over your shoulder. You may be anxious. You may feel depressed. You need support. Maybe you haven't looked because you've been too ashamed. You don't know who to trust, or previous treatment didn't work. Despite your best efforts, you want to be happier. You want to be loved. And if you're in a relationship, you want to feel secure and feel open, or be open in that relationship. I encourage you today to seek out the greatest counselor, Jesus. Yes, Jesus. No, I'm not asking you to pray the shame away. After all, Jesus is known as our counselor. Jesus would have experienced abuse. Isaiah 53:5 tells us how brutal his abuse was. It says, "He was wounded for our transgressions." Remember the spears in his side? "He was bruised for our iniquities." Remember the crown of thorns on his head? "The chastisement of our peace was upon him." Remember those stripes? Yes, he was beaten. And with those stripes, he's saying to you and I this morning, today, or whenever you're listening to this message, by his stripes, you can be healed. Jesus experienced abuse for you and for me. Now, I'm not here minimizing your abuse, but I'm just letting you know that Jesus will also guide you to professionals who can help you, give you techniques to cope. Just as the man in the street was able to run for help for this student, Jesus will send help for you. Just call on him. He says in Jeremiah 33, call on me and I will answer you and show you great and mighty things you know nothing of. In spite of what you're experiencing, the depression, the shame, the anxiety, the pain, Jesus is saying, call on me and I will answer you. Will you call today? Call on Jesus. He will not disappoint you. Shalom.